everyone, I'm Laurie Ellison from Hudson Valley Bookkeeping, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to do a CAM reconciliation for a triple net lease on your commercial property. Okay, let's get started. All right, everybody, we're on to part 2 of doing a CAM reconciliation. In the prior video, I showed you how to create a chart of accounts with these categories underneath, nestled under a CAM expense, but we created it in the cost of goods section so that as you build your file, right now we don't have any overhead expenses down here. Okay, so let's say it's year end. All of this is fiction. It's just numbers I made up in order to show you the next step. So I printed it out, right? And that's what you would do. You could also, if you literally have nothing else, you could export this to a Google Sheet right here, which would work, but I already set up a template. So in this template, I have all of the items that are on my chart of accounts. And then I came up with proportionate shares. Now this does not equal 100. It is, because it usually doesn't, guys. Like it's usually not perfect. So this one's at 95%, and these are the proportionate shares per the lease. Okay, so what you would do is enter in your totals from your profit and loss. Now, another thing, do not print out your profit and loss and attempt to do this reconciliation without having completely posted and reconciled your QuickBooks and gone through it multiple times to make sure it makes sense. You don't want to miss things, but also no file should be reported on if you have not done your bank rec. So here we're going to enter the amounts. Let me make this all dollars. I really like Google Sheets, guys. It's free. I mean, I pay for a paid Google, but I don't know. I'm like totally converted. Management fees. Okay, so now you would do your sum. 26,492.39. I mean, 263,490. Man, what's the matter with me? Okay, so we go here and then we cross check it and make sure they're the same, which they are. So then all I'm going to do here is do the tenant amount times their proportionate share, and it does the autofill. I do it again, times 0.25. I'll let it do the autofill. We'll check it in the end. Equals this times 0.25. Oh, shoot. We could drag it. See, I made a mistake here, guys. Hit escape, escape. That's going again. Well, it should work, but I like to sum those. Make sure that's a sum. Okay. So now we know it shouldn't be, we know the total of these should not total our column B, because our column B is 100% and we only have 95%. But what I would do here is run this to the right and do a sum. And then what I could do here is do a double check. If I take this times 0.95, so see how I work, like I'm double triple checking my work. So now the first step of understanding how much each person's share of this very expensive cam is right here, right? So now I'll do step 2, which is going into how we're going to reconcile that to what you've hopefully already been charging them every month. Okay, we're back to more of the CAM reconciliation. So this is how you want to look at it. I have entered in all of the expenses for 2024 and then allocated everybody's proportionate share. The second thing I did was I double checked my numbers. You want to do this anytime you're using a Google Sheet or Excel. That the number I calculated, I did double check that if I took the total expenses and multiplied it by 95%, it equals. So I just want you to always be double checking. I see a lot of errors in Excel and Google Sheets. Okay, so once you figured out your yearly expenses, that's step 1. Step 2 is to, and then figure out, second step, I guess, actually, is everybody's proportionate share. And then what you have to do is figure out if they have a shortage or possibly they have a credit. And so the funny thing is, like, these two tenants have the same percentage, but for whatever reason, maybe they were a mid-year tenant or something and the estimate was done differently for their CAM payment, they were actually off. So you're going to do what we talked about in another video I did about this, is that then you need to bill them immediately. The $7,000, that's a pretty big bill. I've seen bills of like $50,000. So you're going to do that, and that will catch them up for, according to our spreadsheet, the 2024 reconciliation. The next thing you need to do right away is to get their payment adjusted so they're not off so much. So what I did here was one thing. Like, you don't want to keep them with the same CAM payment and then send them these big year-end bills, right? Okay, so now I also broke it down to what was it in their monthly payment that they paid in 2024. And these are basically the amounts times 12 equals. Okay, so here we have their prior CAM monthly payment, right? Because you're going to create a new invoice for them going forward. So they were paying $6,000, $5,500, $5,350, and $3,100. But the next thing you need to do is say, I've rarely seen it where the CAM expenses go down. So you've got to build in like an increase. I mean, insurance always goes up. Everything always goes up. It's not going down, right? So what I did is I took, if you look here, I took the prior 2024 and I just gave a 5% increase. I like to use this for budgeting. I'm not a big person that believes in a lot of budgets, but I do believe in like a cash flow projection or an estimate of how much expenses will be. I just hate fake budgets. But in this sense, I think it's safe to assume things are going to go up at least 5%. So then what you can do from that is do the reallocation, 30% of your new estimated expenses. So I did this for each cell, hitting over onto this one, right? So if you look here, I did 25% of my new estimated 2025 expenses. Okay, again, you want to do a double check. So I know it's not going to be 100%, so I'm going to run this across, click my sum, 262,833. So now I'm going to double check it by taking this and multiplying it by 0.95. Okay, so that works. So what do you do now? You're probably not going to get this out until February. So you're going to have to, on your February bill, put in an extra $916.68. And you're going to have to write a letter saying, here's your new CAM amount, which is $6,916.68. And they paid only $6,000 for January. So add in an extra $916.68 into that. Okay. Then this person, this tenant, you would have their new amount. they paid you the $5,500, so you'd have $276.30, $90, and then you would take away the credit. So honestly, right now, I will show you how I would go about invoicing this, because then you're going to see it in general. So the only other thing I would break out is your CAM income, because you don't want to try and wash that against the expense. So let's go over how that works. I wouldn't break these out. Yes, I would. Okay, so we have CAM income. Then what I would do is CAM unit tenant 1. Let me just see how many tenants I had. 4. Okay. So we're going to go here to products and services. I'm not going to set up office rent pieces. I'm just going to use these because I'm just trying to show you the other piece. So let's make CAM charge items. So we're going to say service, CAM number 1. Our income account will be the CAM number 1. And let's do another one. CAM number 2. You always link these to the, why will not let me? Okay, so now in order to invoice something, you have to have a chart of account and an item linked to that chart of account to create the invoice. I have videos on invoicing. And then while we're in here, I'm going to just make these a lot bigger so they make a little bit more sense. What was 2? Okay, so I'm going to do 2 examples on how you would create your invoices for the following year. We're going to assume that their January invoice was their whatever their rent is, and that it was still using that old CAM amount. Okay, so let's go with tenant A here. We're going to call it tenant 1 on the other one. So you're going to make your invoice. I don't have okay. Tenant A somewhere. Okay, so we're going to say that this is, let's say we're invoicing it now, but it's going to be due for February 1st rent, right? So you're going to pick your rent, which I already did. Now we're going to do our CAM. And then we're going to say shortage of adjusted 2025 CAM, you know, something. I don't know. It's the shortage. You could say billed in January. Okay, so look, what's our shortage? We're saying that the new monthly payment should be $69,1668. So it's $916.68. Then we're going to do a new one, the same exact one, and we're going to say February CAM. It's always good to use the year. So our February CAM is now the $6,916.68. Then the next thing we have to do is do the shortage for the year. Reconciliation. Okay, so the shortage was $7,047.72. Now, normally, usually send one, like for the reconciliation, you do your own, but honestly, I've seen them grouped, so it just depends. 7,047.72. Okay, so they've got a much bigger bill for this month because they have the shortage for 2024. They have their new CAM. They use this until you give them a new one, right? And then this trues them up. So now that they're consistently paying the $6,916.68. Let me do the one where they overpay, which was tenant B. And then I think you can follow. So in this one, they have a credit, right? So we're going to go tenant B, tenant 2, but I don't even have tenants here, so. Okay, so we're in February, we're billing for February. Let's say it's January 22nd. It's going to be due February 1st. It's good to give people lead time on this. So we're going to do rent. That's your base rent. Then we're going to do the CAM. So now we should put in their new CAM amount, which is $5,763.90. Sorry, I forgot it. 5,763.90. They had a credit of $126.90. So the 2025 CAM is now this. They were paying $5,500. But with their new estimate, we know that going forward, that would be, they're short $200. See, look, the difference is between this and this, $263.90. So we would do an adjustment for the January. So again, I would like move these. And you need to always send a letter. So we say they owe $263.90. And look, you can drag this. So they have their base rent. We did the 2024 CAM rec. They had $126.90 credit. Then you're going to have the adjustment for the January, and then this is their new base rent going forward. I mean, not their CAM going forward. So now you've trued up, right? You gave them a credit for 2024. They've already paid their January rent and their January CAM, which was, I believe, $5,500. So $5,500 isn't enough when they're now needing to pay $5,763. And for whatever reason, they had a very tiny credit in the prior year. But again, you want to keep them trued up because you don't want to be charging people $30,000. Okay. Okay, so I decided I'm just going to go ahead and do the whole thing. So now we're going to do tenant number 3. The other thing is I moved the invoices to February 1st, just so it's easier to follow when we run it on accrual. So you're going to have your base rent. I don't even think I made one for number 3. Let's just make it $15,000. And then we have our CAM number 3. So here we want to have our 2024 reconciliation. So we are going to go to our spreadsheet. 3 1673.10. So we're going to say you're going to have sent a letter, CAM shortage for January 2025. So that's where we take the new CAM amount. So we have a new CAM amount of $57.63, and they were usually paying $53.50. So we know that in January they paid $53.50. So you take that, take away the $53.50, and that's your adjustment for January of 25 on your February invoice for $13.90. And now you're going to do your new CAM that you will use every time going forward. And this is why you send them their breakdown in their spreadsheet. So their new CAM is supposed to be $57.63.90. So again, on this February invoice or whenever you do it, you're going to have to catch. That's why you want to do it now. Don't wait until you're going to have to do 3 months of shortage. Because look, that would be $1,200 versus only charging them $413.90. If you have a big tenant, they're not even going to notice probably or care, and they have plenty of cash. But when you're dealing with other tenants that you need to always be top of mind and be always on top of it, because then they'll know they should pay you first. So we have the amount they owe from the prior year reconciliation, the shortage for the 1 month, and now their new adjusted CAM. Now, hopefully by doing this adjustment, they're not going to barely pay anything when you do your new reconciliation. That's the goal. Get people used to paying the correct amount. So I'm going to say save and close. Now we just have to do tenant number 4. We're doing this in February. We're assuming they've already been invoiced for January. Okay, so now you're going to do your CAM number 4. This will go with your calculation that you show them in their backup. So 2024 reconciliation, they are short $2323.86. Uh-oh. And it's easier than taking the shortage, adding it to the new one, and then dividing it by 11 and going forward. Don't do that. It's too hard to follow the spreadsheets. Just put in one line for the shortage and then the new amount. Because then they're essentially paying what you estimated. So their shortage is, they paid $3,100 in January. So you're going to take this, take away the 31 they paid. Their shortage for 1 month is $358.34. Okay. And this is their new CAM, which we said the new estimate is $3458.34. A lot of 34. Okay, so you have your base rent, you have your reconciliation of the shortage, you have the 1 month shortage, and now you have your new amount going forward. So I just want you to see what it looks like. Now again, your P&L never is going to be like perfect, and everything takes a little bit of looking at. But let's look at it. Got to run this on accrual because I didn't post payments. So one thing you'll notice, and I think that this is good to, like here, I didn't post it. Here's your CAM income. I wasn't posting rent for here. Here's your monthly amount. And these were you can see this is your old base numbers, right? The 6,000, the 5,500, the 3,100. Okay, I figured out how to do a split screen. I think that's a little easier. Okay, so what we're looking at is, look what we billed in January for the CAM. It's the old base amounts of rent. 6,000 for tenant A, 5,500, 5,350, and 3,100. So see how that's following? And then normally you would also see the rent in here, but I'm not talking about rent today. So then on this one, you're seeing a lot more CAM, right? Because that is the 6,000 plus the shortage, right? Plus the new amount. So like, let's just look at this. And this is another way you could just see if everything makes sense. And if you're collecting enough, you don't want to be not collecting enough. So in this one, we had the base, excuse me. We have the shortage between the 6,019. So we could say equals this, take away this. So that we know is the shortage that should be charged. Plus we need the new amount, plus we need the old amount. Okay, and they're rounding. That's fine. So that's how you're following, like, why do I have so much in there, right? And what I would do too, when you create these invoices and are sending them out, you should send some other things to them to explain. And honestly, the P&L, only the section that has to do with the common area, but you could just send them a piece of this. But again, now you can see why your CAM will be so high only in that month, because that is the calculation of the shortage for the year, the shortage for January, and the new month. So you'll have one that's billed higher than most, but that'll help your CAM expense total catch back up. Because as you're watching your profit and loss, you know, you don't want to be like, these are just like exactly the same, 239, 400, and this was, well, look, we're short, right? So that's why we have that true up, because the income, that's another thing to look at. If your income here and your expenses are getting too high, that's when you know you're not charging enough CAM. So you could be watching that over the year, but I don't recommend, I don't think tenants will like multiple true ups. So you're going to have to wait till year end, or, you know, and manage the expenses of the building better to keep within the line. But here you can see there's that shortage. Okay, I had to get this straight in my head for a minute to show you how you, again, make sure you before you send these out that it all worked out. So we have got our spreadsheet here that says what we should bill, right? Like what our total. And then we came up with our reconciliation. And then we created the invoices for everybody. And we came up with the new monthly payment. But we want to make sure before you actually email or text or mail or anything that it really works out, right? So we had our total cams in here. I explained how to see the difference of how much is the new cam and all of the reconciliation. But then me loving to prove math backwards and around the corner or around the block again, what you want to do is you have this whole 263,492. Now we know we billed, because it's right here for our total of December. I put it all on this one. We know we billed 239. Then we came up with how much did we bill in February for the rest of 2024. And this, if you go up here, oh, I can't show it. This is basically the total of each shorting, right? So this is this plus the credit plus the other one plus this. Okay. So add how much you billed in 2024 and or got paid and how much you just billed in your shortages. So what got me for 1 minute was I was like, uh-oh, why don't I equal my total expenses? But you got to remember, guys, our CAM rec is only for 95%. So if you take the total CAM expenses and you multiply it by 0.95, you get the number we billed. So that difference is the amount you can't bill for whatever reason. Maybe it's you're using a piece of the space or who knows what it is. But I don't usually see it where all the leases add up to exactly the same amount. So from there, you could say, okay, I'm good. I know I proved this out. So the next thing, when you go to send it, let's see, I'm going through this whole thing. So you'll probably write a letter and you're going to put in this, the explanation. So this will take some hand typing. And you're saying, you know, that's where we put in those amounts that I have on the spreadsheet. You may give that detailed record, like that printout from the profit and loss, that section, just export that section and say, these were the operating expenses for the building. Your proportionate share is X, blah, blah, blah. So that this sort of letter should go with the invoices. It's usually like a cover letter. And that's CAM. And you do want to also, anything with CAM, you should be breaking it out, the CAM income and then this income. Now, guys, like I was saying, the expense is going to wipe out this, right? But what you're trying to do, and the whole reason you want to keep it this clean, is that you could start seeing how you are. I mean, we put it in Excel, right? But if you ran your numbers from January to December of 24, and then you can easily see right here, see this? That you were short. If you had these amounts mixed in with office supplies and auto expense and whatever other expenses you may have, it's not going to be, it's going to take hours to pick it out. But if you do it this way, just make that little tiny and you're looking at this number compared to this number. And as you're watching that over the year, you can just see, you know, what you need to be adjusting. The only other time I see where a tenant may get a credit is if they've done a big real estate tax adjustment where, you know, someone has hired the attorney who fights the real estate taxes and then all of that, like they actually go down a certain amount for a little while. That is one time where they could get a credit. Usually the other stuff doesn't normally go down much. So anyway, this is kind of fun and I hope you enjoyed this. If you are interested in a private QuickBooks coaching session, you can reach out. I think we run it on the bottom of the video, hello@HV Bookkeeping. There's also capability for you to schedule an appointment with me, a complimentary 15-minute consultation. So if you need help, please reach out. And please like and subscribe. We do not monetize these videos, so it would be great if you could do that for me. All right, thank you.